Hi, I'm Diggs. This is the Talks Moto YouTube channel.
So what makes a motorcycle a project motorcycle? To me, the distinction can get a little bit blurry because most of mine don't run. I'm going to try and help you pick your first one. And the only reason I think that I'm any use at that is that over my course of building project motorbikes, I've picked 9. And if I'm being really generous with myself, I think I got it right about once. That's this one, but we'll come back to that. So the idea is pretty simple. I think I've made just about every mistake there is in buying a motorcycle. Falling in love with pictures, getting myself sold on an idea before I've even gone and seen it. So the plan is you watch me explain, and then you go off and you make your own brand new mistakes, different ones to any I've ever made. But to help you, here's 6 rules. So rule number 1, are you buying a bike to ride, or are you buying a project to build? I like to take a perfectly good Italian superbike and set it up to race on the sand. So you can kind of guess where I fall. Here's what it means for you. If you really want to be out riding, and do yourself a favour, buy something that runs, buy something that has a good service history. The best service history is something that is from a garage, something that's somewhat reputable. The second best is from someone who is mechanically inclined, someone with a good understanding, who's documented all the bits they've done. If you're the sort of person who's alright with buying something that's a bit ropey, that maybe doesn't have a good history, yeah, you can get a bargain, you can get a really interesting project. It will just wind up that at some point you will end up stuck and you will end up having to work it out. So rule number 2, if you can, buy one that runs. The reason for this is simple. If you buy a non-runner, essentially there's a lot of things you can't check. Can you turn the engine over? You can do basic compression checks without a running bike, but there's a lot of things around the electrics, particularly with newer bikes, around the gearbox. I've had other ones where there's the main shaft, which has got damage to the thread that holds the sprocket on. There's a lot of little things that you can't necessarily tell if you can't run and ride that bike. So if you're going to pay out, make sure you know what you're paying and you're paying appropriately. Rule number 3 here, I'd say a complete bike beats a tiny bike. So this is my TriBsa. It's a Triumph engine with a BSA frame. It was made in the early 1950s, so it's a 1952 engine and 1954 frame. The only reason they did this is that the 1954 BSA frames were double cradle instead of single cradle, so they're a bit stiffer and they're a bit better for making desert races out of, the old desert sleds, if you will. Now this bike I bought not running. There were a lot of things that were wrong with it. But what you'll find is you actually have to go quite far through to find out where the mistakes are. For example, this one was timed 180 degrees out, the clutch wasn't installed properly, and there were quite a few smaller bits missing. None of it was going to destroy the project, but just know what you're getting into. If you buy a rough bike that's running, the chances are you're going to have an easier time. So for rule number 4, pick something with parts and a community behind it. The best example I've ever done of this was actually buying a BSA Bantam. It's a 1-cylinder scavenging 2-stroke engine. It's been made by just about everyone. DKW, Harley Davidson, BSA, you name it, someone's done a copy of a BSA Bantam. Everyone knows how to work on them. You're never really going to get stuck. There's a guy on a forum, there's a Facebook page, there's someone on Marketplace selling a little bit here and there. You will have an easy time making this. For rule number 5, I'd say it's never actually one job. You think you're going to do something and you'll set yourself a goal, you'll set yourself a target to do this one job. But what you'll find is there's a lot more smaller jobs along the way. It's the 10% at the end that really catches you. So for example, on that, I bought an SV650. This was back in 2020. I stuck a front end conversion on it. It was a TL1000S front end. All you really have to do to get that front end to work in the basic sense is lift the bike up in the air, pull the forks out, swap the top bearing, and then pop it back together with a big spacer. It's very simple. However, what I found out doing this was that the calipers needed a rebuild. The lines were a different length. My master cylinder wasn't up to pushing the new calipers, so I had to upgrade my master. Obviously then there's the change lines. Also found that my steering stops didn't quite work properly. I also found a couple of other little bits. Things like my throttle cables, they were also a little bit too long, so they just needed a bit of rerouting. But it was one job that turned into something that's a little bit bigger. So just expect that and plan appropriately. For rule number 6, I think you should really be honest with yourself about what you can do and chase the quick wins. So the one bike here that never lets me down is the one that I don't touch, and that is my 1290 Super Duke. That is my daily, and that is the simplest bike I have. Not because it's mechanically simple, but because it isn't modified. The more you modify a bike, the more variables you bring in. My biggest build was probably my 711, so this is a 1990 GSXR 750, the L model, with an 1100 engine in it. I did all the kinematics for the rear end. I changed all of the rear suspension, all the front suspension. I call it my pick and jicks because every single part is pick and mix style with a bunch of different bikes. I bought a frame, and that's all I bought to start this. And that means that anyone else working on it, including myself as well actually, is going to have quite a hard time. So be honest about yourself about what your skill level is. I wanted this as an engineering challenge around kinematics. I wanted to deep dive into suspension. I wanted to dive into making the perfect thing I could out of this platform. But that's me. So the payoff, it's what you actually buy. So after these points here, what does a first project bike actually look like? A good one. Well, what I'd say is you want to actually pick something that you're familiar with, ideally. You also want to pick something that's got a good community around it, and you want to pick something that you don't mind leaving to sit for a while. Not because you're necessarily wanting to leave it to sit right now, but you might run out of motivation and you don't want this to be your only vehicle. You want this to be something that you can work on when you feel motivated to. So do as I say, don't do what I've done. So if you've already bought the wrong one, don't worry. I think if you're coming here, you're among friends. Stick it in the comments. Let me know what you've bought. Let me know your worst project bike you've ever had. For one thing, it might make me feel a bit less alone on my 9 mistakes, or at least 8. I'll be doing videos on these, the front end swaps, the geometry stuff. I'll be showing you how you can design your own subframe. I'll be showing you what a loader case is. We can go through things like safety factors. I can go through 3D scanning something to design and make your own fairing. I can go through additive manufacturing to make composite panels. I can do pressing with different bits of aluminium through 3D printed forms. I can go through 5 to 7 axis CNC machining if it really needs to. This channel is really about having fun. It's also about celebrating that we're not all perfect. We all make mistakes. We particularly all make poor automotive decisions. So if you're here, you're in good company.